everybody, Rebel Cloud9 here, and today I'm going to be doing a versus review. I haven't done this in ages. Last one I did was Revell versus Airfix Albatross. And a lot of people got mad at that one. It was kind of funny. I stopped doing them, but I'm going to do it again. I'm going to be building two. I'm going to be building P-47. And this is Rob at Basic Modeling's fault, in a good way. His favorite aircraft is the P-47 Thunderbolt, and on his channel he frequently builds them, and he has a lot of fun building them. So I always wanted to build them, and the only one I could ever find, I wanted the Revell kit, the only one I could ever find was the Academy Thunderbolt. I'm not a huge fan of Academy kits. You know, they have a lot of problems with their decals and stuff like that. And I had a really bad experience with an Academy kit once. Really, really bad. To a point where basically I spent $40 on a ruined model. But, you know, since then I've built a couple Academy kits, and I've, you know, because of watching videos here, I've learned how to deal with, you know, stubborn decals, how to remove plastic from the sprues properly, stuff like that. So I bought this kit. I was going to turn it into a Tuskegee P-47 for my Tuskegee collection, and I pulled it off the shelf and I was looking at it, and I was watching a bunch of his videos, and I thought to myself, man, I really wish I had the Revell one. And I looked up the Revell one, and I noticed something kind of funny about it, is that the markings on the Revell kit are basically the same as the Academy here. I can't even show that. So they both got these red cowlings, red spinners, red cockpits, and these red lines on the tail section. Found out that they're from the same squadron. So I thought, well, heck, why don't you build both of them as straight out of the box kits and do kind of a versus review here, or versus build, I should say. And so that's exactly what I plan on doing here. So again, this is because of Rob and his enthusiasm of the P-47, that I've just been like, oh, I gotta build one, I gotta build one. I have two Razorbacks from Lindbergh, but I don't have a Bubbletop. This is obviously a Bubbletop here. So let's take a look at the Academy kit first. So when I got the kit, I was kind of pleasantly surprised with the amount of detail in here. This is the cockpit section. It comes in two halves, so you can have it open or closed. Where's my pointy stick? Here it is. It also comes with a mirror for the top here, and it's nice and clean, and that should be fun to paint off. We've got the fuselage here. Fuselage has nice, beautiful recessed details, which, as you know, are my favorite, because that means I get to do a panel line wash. Detail on the inside of the cockpit is pretty good too. It's fairly basic, but unless you have the canopy open, I don't think you're going to see it. What the dickens is that? Anyways, moving on to the second sprue. This is sprue C. We've got some rocket tubes here. He told me that the landing gear on this was a bit too tall, so I'm going to have to match that with the Revell one, and get the landing struts a little lower. You get different drop tank variants here. You got a beautifully molded cowling, which is excellent. It's usually you run into kind of a problem with that sometimes, but no, there's no seam lines. They're just held on by two little stubs, so that's easy to clean off. It's going to be a lot easier than the Academy Zero that I built. The cowling came in 3 pieces. And we get 2 different spinner types. You get this blunt one here, and this is more of a blunt spinner, and a pointed spinner, and pointed props. And last sprue here is the wing section, and the wings have quite a bit of nice detail. The guns on here, they're kind of blunt, kind of funny looking, but not bad. You know, I don't think you're really going to notice it. You got kind of a smaller engine, but once the cowling goes on, again, you're not going to really pay attention to that. The only thing I can say that is kind of a negative is that the landing flaps here are molded onto each other, so you cannot pose it closed as if it were flying. So that's probably the only complaint I can make of an otherwise very, very good kit. Take a look at the instructions here. The instructions are typical Academy. What's really nice, and I really like this, is they have the colors labeled. Flat black, red brown, interior green, gunmetal. I love that they do that. I hate it when companies, they do like A, B, and whatever color they're making up off the top of their head. I like this. They just put the color down. It's really easy to read. Decaling instructions seem to be pretty simple. Not a whole lot to, complain about on these. It's fairly basic. They look fairly nicely spread out. Now, the decals are okay. I do have a problem with the decals. I will point this out. I'm going to actually need the box for this. Hold on. Okay. So the decals are pretty clean. They look pretty nice, except for the nose art. The nose art is a big problem, as well as this little shield is a bit out of register here. But this is the problem I have with the kit. It is this big chief here that they painted on the side. On the box art, he's a brownish color, and then they've highlighted parts of his face as a darker brown. On here, they've made him a very peach tone, and instead of brown highlights, he's red. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to repaint the decal once it's set and dried out. And I'm just going to, like I said, I'm just going to touch that up myself with colors that I have. But otherwise, the decals look pretty good. They seem to be nice. They've got a bit of film onto them, so you just got to trim around that a bit, which shouldn't be, shouldn't be a problem. So let's put this back. And now, and move on to Revell here. Did I open this box already? Yeah, I did. Right here. Okay, so here we have Revell. They've got this little kit. This is a very popular little kit. It's been used a lot. And I found this one, luckily, as the last one in the stock. What's funny is I've wanted this one for a long time. And the only time I ever found it was years and years ago. I was in the store with my dad, and he bought it and built it. And that's kind of how I really wanted it, was after looking at it. And so I found this in another store. My local hobby store has, for some reason, never had this kit in stock again. Now, let's throw these over here. Now, the one thing and this actually prevents me from buying Revell kits, I'll be quite honest, are these side box things. I hate these things. I like a regular box that you can put the pieces into. I've had too many times where I've had these boxes and I've crushed components and stuff, so I can't stand that. So I'll only ever build them if I have another box to put the pieces in, which I usually do. So let's take a look here and start with the Canopy. The Canopy, unfortunately, is very, very bad. It's crazed. It's got this kind of a scraggled look all over it, and you can't clean it because it's molded like that into the plastic. It's kind of a foggy tint to it, and like I said, it's not nice. I might try making a vacuum formed version of this if I don't use this one. Not too impressed with that, unfortunately. But what can you do? Here's the drop tanks. So we get several drop tanks. To get the coffin drop tank, which I always like this one. Get a couple little bombs on here. This is a part of the engine. That's for this version of the kit. Here's the fuselage. Now the fuselage has way more detail than the Academy kit. And it is recessed panel lines. The unfortunate thing is there is a ton of flash on this kit. Everywhere you look, there's flash on parts. And part of that is because, number one, it's a used kit. They've used it a lot. And the other thing is it's on silver plastic. And I dislike silver and red and black plastic immensely because they don't work. It's got to be like a light gray or a nice tan. Silver plastic seems to just spread a lot more and pool out into recesses, and I've seen it doesn't quite catch details all the time. But this isn't. The flash on here is quite a bit, but it's not a lot like of damaging flash. It's quite easy to clean up. You shouldn't have a problem with that. Like I said, nice panel lines in here, the recesses. It's going to look really great once you get a wash on there. Not as much interior cockpit detail as the Academy kit, which kind of surprised me. I thought there'd be more in here, but there isn't. There's just a little bit. It's enough to get you going. Also, you've got the... that's not going to stop anytime soon, is it? You got a nicely detailed cockpit. You've got some buckles molded into the seat there. And again, it's just as nice as the Academy kit here, but more detail. And in the point of the wings, a lot more details have been placed in there. And a bit more detail inside of the gear bays as well. The guns are molded in here, and they're a little bit thinner. And I think they look just a bit nicer than the Academy ones. But, yeah, they're still good, and still, like you can see here, look at that, all that flash to clean up. Last part here is you can see is the engines, the propellers. You only get one propeller type in here. This is a bit of a damaging piece of flash on here, as far as I could tell by what the instructions were saying. So I'm going to have to cut that carefully. You get the cowl flaps open. That needs to be really, really cleaned. And an unfortunate thing with the cowling is, like I was just saying, is it's lost a lot of its detail because of the molds, or the silver. So I have to rescribe the entire cowling. All that nice detail is just gone. You get a nicer, bigger engine here at the Revell. And accurate tires on here. The ones on the Academy one are kind of fictionalized, but the landing gear bays, again, are nicer on here because you have to cut them apart. So far, which is better, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Oh yes, I forgot the instructions. The wonderful Revell booklet of what the devil were they thinking. So here we have A, B, C, D, all the way to O in colors here, which is always fun to flip back and forth and figure out. Instructions are nice. They've labeled them out really well. They tell you how to position parts here properly, how to paint things certain ways. Not much to say. It's really labeled out here very nicely. Kind of a cool thing is the canopy here can slide back and forth. You get that as an option here, which is kind of fun. I might actually just do that just for the sake of it. And shows you all the options. And the decaling instructions, they're a little crowded because there's so many decals to put on the model. There's a lot of decals to this kit versus the Academy one here. And the decals, by what I've seen, look really, really nice here. I'm very anxious to get to try them out. You get this nose art in 2 halves, which will be a little difficult to cut and paste that around the cowling with the flaps open. It shouldn't be impossible. It'll just be a little more tricky. And you get a bunch of other options. This is a French version here, and American World War II version, which is same squadron, but the Academy one you get Burmese decals. So that's both of the kits. I'm going to go and start building the cockpits now. And yeah, I'm really excited about this. Aside from the extra flash to clean up with the Revell kit, it should be should prove itself to be a pretty fun kit. So I'm gonna go and start building. Just got the canopies or cockpit sections built here. Letting them dry, then I'm gonna start painting them, and then I'll present them better. But I wanted to try something here. Is I needed the fuselage to make sure I get everything lined up properly, and I thought, I wonder what the size difference is compared to them if I put the two fuselage halves together. So I'm going to do that here. Let me just move these out of the way here. Slide these out. So here I have the right side of the Academy kit and left side of the Revell kit. Interestingly enough, they both have the tail on the same side, so that makes this possible to do. And yeah, let's just put these up nose to nose, like that. So the Revell kit is a bit fatter than the Academy kit. The cockpits, the Academy one's back a little bit, and the Revell one is a little bit bigger. But I think part of that is going to be gone once the gun sight gets in there. And the Academy one is only about, I'd say about maybe 2 millimeters, maybe 1.5 millimeters shorter. So they're about the same length. It's kind of cool. I'm not one of these modelers that takes their model and places it over top of like actual 72nd scale blueprints. I'm not that fussy when it comes to my modeling, because I'm not skilled enough to do anything about it to make it accurate. But I just thought I'd try this and see kind of how they compared with each other. Maybe I'll keep doing that throughout the rest of the build here. But yeah, they're still both not much difference. Definitely not a lot that your eye is going to catch just by looking at them, at least. So I'm going to go and have to grab a book here of what the inside of this cockpit looks like, so I'll know how to accurately paint it. I'm not quite in agreement with the instruction recommendations because I've seen them different than what they call for. So I'm going to go do that right now, and yeah, then I'll be back once all this stuff is painted and detailed and we're ready to glue the fuselage halves together. Now I'm going to use one of my favorite tools that I have, Tamiya's Panel Line Accent Color. It's fantastic stuff. It is enamel, so it goes on nicely onto an acrylic base here. I painted everything green and painted all the dials and everything. I did find, I find the canopies on the two kits kind of interesting. It's like the one does enough detail on the one side, and then the other one does better detail on the other side. Like the walls on the Academy one are way nicer than the Revell ones, but the seat here is much nicer than the Academy one, and same thing with like the console and everything. It's like I wish that I could just take them and just combine them together and make like one ultimate kind of kit here. Maybe that's what Tamiya did. I've never seen someone building the Tamiya Thunderbolt before. I've only ever seen the Academy one a couple times, but mostly the Revell one here. Oops, I know what I did there. So yeah, this stuff you just paint it on. You guys have seen me use this a lot. It's pretty simple stuff, and when this is dried out a bit more, I'll use the mineral spirits on it and clean it up a bit more. I actually thought I had a chance to buy the Tamiya one once. It was in this local store in Calgary there, and they made me really mad because they had the 72nd scale Tamiya Thunderbolt, and they wanted
$60 for it in 72nd scale. I'm like, what? You gotta be kidding me. The $60 one is the 48th scale one, which is supposed to be amazing. You don't spend that much on this little thing. And so I called them about it. Or no, I didn't call them. I wrote to them, and they never got back to me acknowledging it. And it stayed like that for quite a while. And it recently disappeared, and I just have this horror that someone spent $60 on a 72nd scale Thunderbolt. No. Ooh. Too much in there. This will just look really nice once it's in the, inside the cockpit and everything, and especially after this when I give it like a nicer wash on it. When you add the mineral spirits, it takes away a lot of the wash, which is kind of what you want because it looks good because it's dirty, but it looks too grimy, and that's something you don't really want. Unless that's what you're trying to go for with your model. In that case, full steam ahead. For me, though, I just want it to look fairly used. Still kind of new. And there it pulls into all the recesses and everything. Looks excellent. And even, maybe when it dries, it'll just still, look good. Even like that. So maybe I'll leave it. And the nice thing on the Revell one here is I painted all the dials here silver. And you put a wash on them and it kind of highlights them a bit. Makes them look really cool. Get there in the pedals and stuff like that. So yeah, after this little bit here, the next step is to just leave it alone and let it dry. Then I'll be able to handle it and glue them together. But yeah, so far it's actually looking pretty darn good. So like I said, maybe it's good enough. I don't need to take any of it off. Maybe I'll just take off a little bit. Wait and see when I get there. So yeah, I cleaned up the mineral spirits on the Academy one. The Revell one, I don't know, it didn't seem to be as bad. So what I'm going to do now is glue the cockpit in place and then glue the halves together here. And this one I pre-fit already to make sure everything stayed in place. So let's glue that down. There. It's pretty, it's amazing to me how big aircraft are. When as you're building them in scale, you find that out a lot. And it's amazing like how big the P-51 is and how big whatever else is compared to it. I was always under the impression that the Hellcat was kind of small, like the size of the Mustang, and the Hellcat is a bit smaller than the Thunderbolt. Actually, I think they're maybe a bit bigger. I'll have to grab that and double check. But I always get a kick out of that. Like, this is a huge monster of a plane, and I know one of the problems that the U.S. government had with it is that they liked the Thunderbolt a lot, but it required an awful lot of fuel and oil. That was kind of one of the drawbacks of the plane. Okay, let's just place this down gently. Come on. go. Uh-oh, what was that? Oh, good, that was nothing. Thought I broke something there. Didn't. Good fit. Yeah, looks nice and tight. And I'll just leave this for a little while. I'll come back and scribe. I'll have to rescribe some details, but not a lot. Which is nice. I have to admit, I kind of hate rescribing details sometimes. Like sometimes you get details that you just can't really rescribe without a lot of really good tools and things, which I don't always have. Okay, this fits about there. Okay, so this will be take 2 of doing this little section. My battery just happened to die, basically, as I was finishing, so I lost the file. So I'm going to start this all over again here, and I'm going to show you guys what I've done on the model so far. Is I just put them all together, basically. I masked off the canopy, and when you get silver models like this, it's pretty easy to just paint them silver and you get one coat. But a lot of people like to do natural metal finishes. And if you look at the picture of even an old Thunderbolt, you're going to notice that there are usually different shades of silver in the model, or in the aircraft. Here's the Airfix P-51. You guys may or may not recall this one. This is their little 72nd scale Tuskegee kit. And here I painted a couple of the panel lines a different silver here. So this is what you want to do, to get that natural silver look. So this are the gun bays right here, and I painted these chrome silver X11, and they've got more of a shine to it. They're quite a bit brighter, and I painted, panel here and a couple underneath. I painted those the same color. And so I've got kind of a different color tone going on it, and then I painted on the aluminum. Now, when you're doing this kind of thing, you can go kind of as crazy as you want with silvers that you'd like to use, but for me, for right now, I used flat aluminum at FX16 from Tamiya, and I just painted on here certain panels that I thought I would like to have painted over. So I didn't do the whole model. Just a couple of them here. You can see I did the gun bays, bits of the wings here. I did the flaps, and after I airbrushed that, I painted on Coat of Future just to protect it while the paint's on there, so that the paint wouldn't be stripped off when you remove the window. So after this is done, I'm going to paint on the chrome silver. And then you paint on the red bits and stuff like that. But I noticed on the P-47 in particular, there's all these little panels everywhere. They're just tiny, tiny little panels. And so that's going to give way for a third color, which will either be Tester's enamel flat aluminum, or, where is it? Yeah, steel. So it's going to be one of those two colors. And that's just going to give it a third look. And you can, just look around and see what kind of silvers that you can find when you want to do multicolored silvering and stuff like that. Just to get an idea what you want. I'm going to show you here. I already masked off the Academy kit. You can see it's all ready to go. And so now I can airbrush on there the chrome. That's going to give it a really nice look in the end of it all. So to mask this stuff off is pretty simple. I'm going to show you how to do it. You just need some good tape here and some kind of a burnishing tool. I'm going to use my file here. It's got a nice pointed but blunt end on the top there. And you're going to need a hobby knife with a fairly sharper blade than usual. So let's just tear off a strip of the tape here, just a small little square. I'm going to line it up on the one side here. That way I don't have to make a square. So let's just press it down, kind of burnish it like that. So when you're doing this, just as a tip, Mask off one side first of the wing, and then do the other side. Don't go here, here, or especially don't put 2 strips of tape down on here. The reason for that is you want to keep one side here as a reference as to what the shape is supposed to look like. Sometimes you don't, find where the edges are anymore, and you can easily just forget about it, and then you accidentally, cut into the fuselage or the wing here, and you have to sand it down. You have to maybe fill it in, and it's just more work for yourself, and might even have to repaint that part. So this way I'm just keeping it as a map. I can see there's a line that goes here that I want to follow. So let's go up to here, kind of just pressing down on it with my fingernail. And because it's Tamiya tape, I can sort of see through it. So I'm just pressing down on it here with my nail file. And let's press here on this side, like that. Okay, and there's one more here. Okay, so now I have the shape that I want, and just carefully trim in the groove. Just work at a nice slow pace. When you're doing this, you have no rush. You don't want to accidentally, slip your knife and again end up making some new panel lines. There you go. So let's just peel this off. Especially pay attention to corners like that right there. Just need to trim that just a little more. Otherwise you'll end up ripping it up, and you don't want that. And there you go. That's how you mask them off. It's a lot easier to do this with recessed panel lines, because you can just follow into the groove. But you can do it with raised panel lines. You just got to take a bit more time. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go and mask off the rest of this model. And again, I'm going to start with the top of the wings. I'm going to start with this side, then I'm going to move to this side, then I'm going to flip it around and mask off parts on the bottom here. And I didn't do it a lot. Like, it's not kind of like every other panel is masked off. You can do that if you like. I mean, it's totally up to you, but that's not what I'm going to do in particular for this one. So that's all there is to it. I'm going to go and finish masking these, and then I will get to work painting on the silver. So you guys will get to see that. That's all there is to it. Hope that helps.